Welcome back to Thursday Thoughts with Bourbon Lens, and I'm excited to bring back a guest that you've heard on the main channel quite a few times, and Troy Bolotnick, CEO of Filmland Spirits. So sit back and buckle into the latest episode of Thursday Thoughts. Troy, it's great to have you on this type of medium. It's a little bit different than the last time we've caught up. It's just me and you. I'm so excited to chat with you. I have to first ask, before we get into whiskey, which this is all about, summer movies, we are in that time, and as you know, your background, have you been paying attention to the box office this summer? Has anything tickled your fancy?
Yeah, well, first of all, Jake, good to see you, and thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it. Yeah, you know what's weird is I was on a film-related podcast, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, and they asked me, what's the latest movie you've seen? And I realized the last movie I'd seen in the theater was the one I had seen the last time I was on their podcast, like 8 months earlier. So, and just the bottom line is, you know, the company keeps me so busy, but I do love summer blockbusters. And so I actually have seen a couple of movies in the last few weeks. And so because of that, yes, I have actually been paying attention to the box office for the first time in a while, because I did see Jurassic Park and I did see Superman.
Nice. So I've heard mixed reviews on both of those, right? The media loves to hype things up one way or the other. From the CGI perspective of it, in the commercials I've seen, Superman looks phenomenal, like visually. I don't know anything about the plot. I don't, for me, I know it's not an origin story, but I do love the idea of Superman kind of standing by himself in your first episode, like that you create James Gunn versus a team up, but you know, whatever works. I will get to the theater to see that. And I'm a Jurassic Park person, so I will go and see this new one. And I've heard you have to think this one is completely different than the rest. It's just kind of a standalone thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, you know, they're like, it's like a reboot. It, like all the Jurassic Park movies, it's going to pay attention to its past, but it is a reboot. You know, it's all new characters and everything. Let me put it this way. I don't think either were perfect movies, but I was very entertained and enjoyed both a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing about movies. We get into like these ideologies, right? Because we try to see the movies through like this looking glass of however we perceive the world. And that's not what these people are trying to do, I don't think, most of the time. They're just trying to tell a story and have fun. And James Gunn has done a great job of having fun. Just go look at his other character movies, like, you know, Star-Lord's probably one of my favorite comic book characters that he brought to life. And so, you know, he does a great job telling a story. So I'm excited to see what the DCU, whatever the heck it's going to be called.
Right. It's hard for me because I'm of the generation that grew up with Christopher Reeve. Like I was, you know, I saw that movie in the theater and it was epic. Yeah. Right. And, you know, 1 and 2, I don't want to talk about 3, 4 and whatever, but 1 and 2 were epic. And it's hard, you know, even though I've watched them recently and they're certainly dated, they look like 70s movies, but it's still, you know, he was the best. So it's definitely hard to compare, but I definitely enjoyed this new Superman.
Well, it's like for me, like my childhood love was like Kevin Conroy as Batman in the animated series. And then my mom had such an affinity for the original Batman with Michael Keaton and obviously Danny DeVito with the Penguin. And like, for me, it's so hard to top that, even though like I know cinematically the Christopher Nolan saga is pretty amazing, but like Michael Keaton, the way he portrays Bruce Wayne and Batman, I think he's like, it's kind of hard to get over the nostalgia of that. So it's always hard when you have a certain experience. It's like all the people who grew up with the original Star Wars, you look at the new ones and you're like, meh. But cinema's great, and it's so hard to get there and commit because all the movies have gone so much longer. I feel like 3 hours is a long time to commit to a movie.
Yes. Yeah. And even your average like action movie now is getting close to 2 hours, not to mention the fact that they've added like 15 minutes of commercials. I don't mean previews. I mean commercials in front of the movies now. It's a long experience, but yeah, no, I could talk to you about Batman and Star Wars forever. So I could use 45 minutes about that.
Well, next time we do this, we do go deeper on that because I do have an affinity for Batman. I have got my Batman ranked. Ben Affleck would be last. George Clooney's last.
Okay.
Nipple Batman was bad. Yeah, that was just altogether bad. But the action figures were great growing up. I loved playing with them. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Batman's my favorite comic book person.
Yeah. See, when you say nostalgia going back to Batman, I would
Adam
be talking
West.
about Adam West, because I grew up watching reruns of Adam West.
So that was on Nick at Night had that on at like it ended up being like 9:30, like 9:30 to 10. Like every night they would play like I Love Lucy for like 3 hours, and then
Mm-hmm.
they would play like one episode of Batman. And my dad was like, "You need to watch this." He's like, "It's pow, blam, whammo." And it's like, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so there were, when I grew up, there were 3 channels, maybe 5 with a couple of the locals, and one of the locals would play those Batman reruns after school, like 2 in a row. And so we would race home from school and to make sure, because she couldn't record them, to make sure that we could watch those 2 episodes that because they were new to us, right? And that kind of thing. And that was how I watched the Batman.
Man, it's great comedy though. Like you go back and look at it, it's like what they were doing back in the 60s. Like that was really impressive. Like still the movement and the film capture and all of that to tell a story off comic books that were still being written. It's not like everyone has all the access. Like the Detective Comics were coming out like pretty much right when that was coming out too. So it was really interesting to see how they riffed off the comics, because the comics were a lot darker than the TV show ever thought about being. But the characters, the Joker and the Catwoman and all that were epic.
They were.
So it was fun because you got to see them reoccurringly. It wasn't just like they were like, oh, this whole saga was about Catwoman. No, like Catwoman and Joker would team up, or Catwoman and Riddler. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, the team ups were the best.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I appreciate you nerding out with me about film. The big one that is coming out that's still left is Fantastic Four, which will drop later in this month. Interested to see the reboot of that film for the 3rd time in the last 20 years. Doesn't happen often that you get 3 reboots.
It's technically the 4th if you got a chance to see the unseeable original one that got shelved.
No, I didn't see that one.
Back in the 90s, I think it was Fox did a Fantastic Four movie that they never released, and they burned the film and everything. But there's bootleg copies of it out there. I've seen bits of it.
Wow. That's kind of like the Nick Cage Superman.
Yeah. But this got filmed. This was a full movie, like a lot like the Batgirl movie that just was never released because it, for whatever reason, it was terrible. The story behind that, and then we got to move on. The story behind that is that the person who owned the rights, I can't remember who it was, but the person who owned the rights, they were running out. And if they didn't make a movie, they were going to lose the rights. So they made the movie to keep the rights and then shelved it.
Oh man, that's a lot of money, but not my problem, not my money. Speaking of money, you all have invested a lot of time, energy, and effort into your beautiful bottles that are sitting behind me. And the first thing that we got to talk about before we get into the innovation, because I do love the latest release that you put out, teaser, guys and gals, is you all are also giving the people an opportunity to be a part of your all's mission and growth. Can you tell us a little bit about what you all are doing there to help build the capital to reach more people with Filmland?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we started 2025, we were in 10 states. We're now in 16, and by the end of the summer, it'll be 17. And so that growth, you need a lot of fuel, right? Every state we go into, there's a lot of costs in just establishing and marketing and getting going. And so we're always raising money. I always kind of joke, but it's a serious joke that half my job is raising money. From 2 years before we launched until today, that's still what I do a lot of the time. And it's funny, people get this perception that if you're raising money, you're hurting in some way, but every company this size is always raising money, right? Every giant company is always raising money, and whether it's debt or through consolidation or merger. So it's just part of what we do. And it takes a lot of money and fuel to get to a place where you no longer have to raise money, where you can be self-sufficient. And, it's just part of the process. So we finished the last round, and then we were looking at what we were going to do for our next round of financing, and there are choices. But I've always wanted to do a crowdfunding round because we get so many people who are customers or partners in different ways who have said, hey, I want to participate. Can I be an investor? But they wanted to put in a relatively small amount compared to what we had been raising from high net worth individuals. And there was no practical way to do that because it's really hard to, have 100 investors or 1,000 investors who have $500 or $250. The only way to do that is through a crowdfunding platform. So we just said, look, let's do our next round as crowdfunding and, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We'll continue to raise funds, and we'll give all those people who are interested a chance to own some shares in the company and be part of that journey. And that's really how that came about. So we're about 2/3 of the way through that. We got about a month left, a little under a month left before it closes. And it's been a super interesting learning process. But we've had a lot of those people who over the couple of years we've been around who'd said they want to participate now got a chance to and did come in and participate.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome. And I've actually been trying to talk to my wife about, do we have any extra change laying around? Because I think it'd be fun just to own like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like it's so
Right.
different in your stock portfolio. You just have a little bit of this, and
Right.
one
The
day when
cool
people believe like I do in Filmland Spirits, you make a little
Thank
money.
you. Thank you. The cool thing about it is the minimum investment is like $250. I think it's $250.12. The cents is to make it round the number of shares even. And I think that gets you like 74 shares. So, it's not impossible for a lot of people to have $250 to put in. And then as you get to the larger amounts, like 500, 5,000 and up from there are bonus shares. So you actually, if you put in 5,000, you may be eligible to get $5,100 worth of shares, and it keeps scaling up from there. And then there's all these perks. So like at the $500 level, you may be eligible to get your name on we're going to have a credits page on the website, or we're going to have an investor only single barrel you can get access to, or at a certain level, you can be part of picking it. And then all the way at the top levels, you can join us for a blending session in Kentucky, or get your name on the bottle as an executive producer, or even use your face and your name for a character in the future, things like that. So all of that's available. It's actually at startengine.com/Filmland Spirits, or you can just go to filmlandspirits.com and there's a video playing right now. You just click it and it'll give you all the information that you need to know.
Well, guys, don't miss out on an opportunity to get behind a brand that has a lot of story to tell, and you can tell your story along with that. And that is how you produce a segment and to the weather. But really, to the piece de la resistance, this guy. So, Moonlight Mayhem with an exclamation point 2. I had to make sure everyone knows this is the second. This is not, a riff off the first one. This is, the follow up. This is finished in. It's the White Port Wolf. First of all, White Port doesn't get talked about a ton. You're about Ruby and Tawny a ton, and that's made famous by a lot of different distilleries. Obviously Angel's Envy, and then you have Midwinter's Night Dram. That is also famously finished in port casks. What's interesting is for the 10th anniversary of the first time I had White Port was with the 10th anniversary of Midwinter's Night Dram. They did a White Port. And so I like the difference, the brightness of the White Port versus, the more jammy characteristics of the Red Port. I think this plays really nicely. I do love the fact that this is aged at least 7 years, so it does give you that limited time offer feeling. I do like the story, the new character that's in there. And so, tell me a little bit about this. Honestly, the one thing I'm mad at myself at as I speak to you, I've not gone and watched the film trailer for this one.
Okay.
I normally go out and watch all the trailers, but I've not, because I've just been enamored by the whiskey itself.
Okay. Well, you can watch the trailer either on our website at filmlandspirits.com or Filmland Spirits on YouTube. The trailers are up there as well. This is there's a QR tag right on the bottles itself. It's one of my favorite trailers. It's short, it's to the point, but I think it's really super effective and kind of fun. So yeah, so this is Moonlight Mayhem 2, the White Port Wolf, and it is a 7-year-old straight bourbon that we finished in White Port casks that we got from winery Napa Valley. This is not only our first finished release, but it's our first sequel. So it is a true sequel to Moonlight Mayhem. So we took our double gold medal winning Moonlight Mayhem bourbon, aged it 7 years, and then finished it in the White Port casks. And then the story actually picks up where the Moonlight Mayhem story leaves off. The other thing, and I agree with you, by the way, in terms of the flavors, I like lots of different port finished bourbons. I think a lot of the port, the Ruby and the Tawnies tend to feel more like dessert bourbons. And I wanted something that was more like a summery kind of bourbon, and something that was more driven by like the earthy and nutty and kind of like green grape flavors, as opposed to like the heavy red grape flavors. And that's why we went with White Port as opposed to Red Port. And we did a lot of tests and found the taste that we like as well for that. And so far the reviews have been great, and the response has been really great to it as well.
Yeah. I was going to say, One thing I do like about it is it does, play in with the moon, right? The white port with the white moon. So it does have a nice character story built in there too.
Yes, and that's why her hair, the White Port Wolf, who's on the cover, her hair is meant to be sort of like bleach blonde, as well, to kind of tie into that. And that's what I was going to mention about the label, because I love this label. We have different artists who work on different labels for us, and I think I've talked to you about our process before, where I'll create mock-ups in Photoshop of what we want the label to be, and then I'll bring it to the team and we rip it apart and eventually end up with a mock-up, and then we'll bring in an artist to recreate it. Until now, all that recreation, all that hand illustration has actually happened on computer digitally, because most people who paint that, for this kind of medium now, paint on the computer. We actually worked with an artist named Anton Kimball on this, who we got introduced to. Anton was making movie posters in the 80s and 90s. So Anton is like a pure artist and paints on canvas by hand. So this label was painted on canvas by hand. The first time a computer was involved was when it was scanned in.
Whoa.
And then we assembled it, once the pieces were scanned in. But he painted, so I have the canvas with just the wolf on it, and I have the car and the moon and all these and we have all these behind the scenes pictures of his studio with the paint tubes everywhere and him painting this. So I was really excited that we actually got to do that for the first time.
Well, that's really cool. And if you're looking for a limited time offering this summer, this is one that I will point you to in a heartbeat. And that's not just because you're talking to me. I really enjoy this. I think it has a lot of flexibility in how you drink it, whether neat or on a rock. I think it offers a lot of that options to you. It's a fun drink. This summer, sometimes, you get bogged down by all the 150 proof bourbons that are coming out these days. And this one coming in at 94 is approachable from a proof point perspective and just overall enjoyable. So, I think you all did a great job with this one. It's a great follow-up, from the last release of the Quadriforce, coming something new and bright, and we're kind of going back to where you all started from.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's so, to make sure everybody knows, this is a limited release. This will not always be available. We made about 4,800 bottles of it, I think. So we've moved through at least half of it already, and it is really meant as a fall release. So there's not that much left, but there'll be plenty for the holidays and that kind of thing. But it is meant as a limited release. And last year's limited release, which is still available and still current, is Quadriforce, which you mentioned, which at this year's San Francisco World Spirits Competition, Quadriforce actually won a gold medal. And in this month's Wine Enthusiast, they gave it a score of 95, which when they gave our town at the end of tomorrow, our first limited release, a 93, we were like, wow, that's so high for them. And then they gave Quadriforce a 95. So the praise has been off the charts for that as well. So both Quadriforce and this are still available.
Yeah, well, you're leaning into it. You've created a lot of great products. I think there'll be more to come as you all have more stories to tell and more access to liquid as investors, whether it is you, Johnny on the spot, investing before this round closes, or whoever the next big investor may be. Troy, I think you all have a bright future, and we'll continue to check up with you. And we're super excited for whatever is next in the Filmland Spirits arc, because there's the world's at your fingertips. So really appreciate you joining this Thursday Thoughts this week.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it, Troy. Have a great one, and cheers to everybody. Bye.